Welcome to a surprise Skype for Business broadcast. Here joining me is Debbie Arbini. I am Sean Wilson. I am the Technical Product Marketing Manager for Deployment and IT Pro. But one of the biggest challenges about deployment is actually getting people to use it.
Yeah.
So I decided I was going to bring in Debbie to talk to us all the way from Portland. She drove all the way up here just to join you specially to talk to us a little bit about the next phase after deployment, which is really adoption. So Debbie, why don't you give a little intro to who you are?
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Debbie Arbini, and I have been working in the adoption space for about 15 years, all with UC products. So for those of you, I'm probably dating myself, but those of you who may remember a product called Placeware. So web conferencing, we then moved over to LCS, OCS, Link, now Skype for Business, and my entire 15-year career here has simply been around getting end users to adopt our technology. So going through change management, training, awareness, support, all of those different pieces, bringing them together so customers can really maximize the value of their investment.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So you and I actually have a working history of, what, about 4 years now?
A long time, yeah.
When I was in IT and we were working on actually adoption and deployment and
Yep.
how Microsoft was using it. What is one of the trends that we see with people that adopt Skype for Business, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So again, just given my career path as well, where we used to have all these different products. So there was a web conferencing product, and there was an audio conferencing product, and there was an instant messaging product. And Skype for Business really brings all of that together. And I still see customers thinking of Skype for Business as an IM tool, right? I consider it, I call it this big powerhouse. It can really do everything for you. You can text and you can call and you can audio call and video call and meet and collaborate across multiple devices with anyone, anywhere. And I still see customers kind of falling short and not realizing that you can do so much. I talk to them and they think, oh, it's our IM tool.
Yeah, actually, that's a really, really important thing to remember, is because a lot of customers remember when it really was OCS, and that was what its core was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're all really familiar with the days of AOL, right?
Yes, absolutely.
and the fact that what is it, IRC, right? Interrelay chat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we all, those of us that are techie go back and remember that. But really, basic IM and presence has existed, and we've really been at the forefront for enterprises doing that. But one of the things that we really bring to that is a different integration story. So why don't we tell a little bit about that integration story and how customers can really latch onto that?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, customers really have a need. I mean, everything they do, I call communication the heartbeat of your business, right? You communicate in so many different ways with so many different types of people, internal and external. And by using a technology like Skype for Business, you're really using just one solution for all of your communication needs. And I think it's really a way to start integrating. It allows you to save money because you're not managing multiple products.
Yep.
It allows you, as we all know, sometimes technology doesn't like to play nice with one another. So from an IT perspective, when you're kind of managing things that go wrong because it doesn't support this other add-in or things like that, you're worrying about keeping up to date with training for your end users and making sure your support desk knows how to manage multiple products and support multiple products. You can really bring that all together with a technology like Skype for Business.
Yeah, it's actually interesting, and I'm actually going to come down to this path, but I keep being reminded, and we seem to make this mistake every time we do the broadcast. Don't forget that we've got Q&A Manager on the right-hand side, and you've got Bing Pulse down below. We'll be asking you questions down below. One of the things that we got already is that most of the people are from the U.S. Does not surprise us. It's 2:30 Pacific time, so we're kind of outside the window, but we really wanted to make sure we got Debbie in here to talk. But one of the things that I wanted to kind of go back to that is how many of our customers typically don't recognize the value that they could really have within a single client to do IM, meetings, voice. Is it a pretty common theme that people don't understand all the value they have, or is it that they just haven't decided to make the shift?
I think it's the former. I think they don't realize everything that Skype for Business can do. I can't tell you how many times I'm on the phone with a customer and I have that aha moment where they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know you could do this, whether it's uploading slides or sharing out content and collaborating on the fly, integration with Office 365, integration with OneNote, putting notes up on SharePoint, having, a Yammer feed, all of that stuff in Skype for Business is kind of the center point for all of those different technologies. Being able to, even from a general email, see someone's presence, start an IM, escalate to a call, and just knowing that end-to-end path where you can start an IM, add video, add audio, add sharing. The customers are just blown away that you can do all of that. They had no idea.
So one of the things that we will at the end of this bring in, and I want to make sure that we address it, is we will give you access to a ton of resources that Deb has pulled together. We'll talk to you about some of the other stuff, because this common theme that we're seeing is not something that's just an anomaly within one or two companies, but rather it's something that, it's the old field of dreams, right? You build it, they will come.
Yes.
I did that one video a year ago on,
I love that video.
The what's new in client, but the one that I thought that was like the 4-minute short version, I thought was going to be the popular one. What ended up happening is our 15-minute one, where I went through the entire thing.
Stack,
There's over 170,000 views, because people want to know more. So you build it, they will come. So we'll definitely talk a little bit more about that. So
I think along those lines, though, and I see you coming to the slide here, is that then I see customers that are like, oh, this is great. I can consolidate. I can get rid of all these third-party and other solutions and standardize on Skype for Business. I just need to send an email with a link to training, and we're all good. Everyone will adopt it. I see my return, and everyone's happy. And I'll just say not so much. So I wanted to just, for those of you, you can see on the slide here, we talk about adoption, right? And where you're really going to start seeing the value of all of those different modalities within Skype for Business really comes down to when users adopt it. And that means making it a habit. I'm going to use a voodoo word here, but Google it, right? Everyone knows what that means, right? And you do it without thinking about it. So what you want to do is really make adoption and Skype for Business a habit without thinking about it. Like, oh, I need to reach Sean. I'm going to see if he's available. I'm going to start an IM.
So what you're saying is not Google it, but Skypeify it?
Yeah, or Bing it.
Bing it. There you go.
There you go. We can now say Bing it.
That's right.
Yeah, and so it's really requiring users to change the way they work. And unfortunately, what happens, if you do a little click there, is, and this is research that's out there, almost 70% of change initiatives fail. That organizations are not able to get users to change their behavior and change the way they work. And what happens is they end up managing resistance instead of managing change, because people push back, right? No one likes to be forced into doing something they don't want to do, especially as adults. And if you just push something out there, rip and replace, take away an old technology and put something else out there, people will start pushing back. And so let me take you through. If you go to the next slide, this is what I typically see organizations doing. I'll call it the common approach, right? You spend all this time, and for good reason, on the technical deployment, right? Your network needs to be up and running. The client needs to be deployed. Users' licenses need to be assigned. All of that stuff has to happen. But then you look way on the far right there, and there's all this little tiny box for end user readiness. And basically, they send an email with a link to training. And as you can see with that trajectory, that does not work.
Yeah. So let me ask a more of a, I guess, process question.
Yeah.
We all know that change is hard. What are some of the great things, though, that actually will encourage somebody to make the change rather than a resistance to it? Springboard them towards adoption.
Yeah. So I call it, it's my own little personal thing of a push versus pull type of strategy. And I'll give you guys an example of hopefully something you can relate to. We've all traveled and stayed in hotels, right? And if you go to the bathroom in the hotel, you see this little table tent card that says, help us save the environment. Please reuse your towels. We'd be much appreciated, right? That's a pull strategy. They're trying to get you to pull in so that they don't have to, use the towels and in turn, or reuse the towels, and it allows you to save water, save the environment, so on and so forth. So you're kind of like, oh yeah, I want to be a part of that. What if that same table tent card said, you know what, washing towels costs us money, it costs us water, it costs us detergent, it costs us resources. We don't want to do it, just reuse your towels. Right? That's a push strategy. You're trying to push someone into doing something. The end result, the end goal is really the same. They want you to reuse your towels, but it's all about how you approach it. And a lot of the time when you try to do a rip and replace and just rip out technology, push it on end users, they're going to push back. They don't like being pushed into something. So we actually have a process, which is our ideal approach here, which takes folks through an end-to-end end user readiness in alignment as a parallel work stream to the technical deployment.
So what you're saying is, if you really want to get change, end users need to have skin in the game, right? Similar to your push-pull thing, there is a personal motivation for a user, or in the case of a guest, to be part of this thing of reusing towels versus a mandate. And we all know from dealing, I mean, you know, Who Moved My Cheese is a great example of dealing with change, right? And one of the questions that is there is that, you know, I think it's not even a question, it's more a statement. The change in how the IT pro is evolving is really one of those things that is really having to become a little bit more in those soft skills, a little bit more in where we talk about underneath this second box, you've got the end user focused campaigns and engagement, and that is very much different than the historical IT model where IT did the research, found the tool, deployed the tool, people used. I think BYOD has kind of changed the way, and actually I think even the mobile world has changed the way people want to adopt technology.
Yeah, I think it's called some of you may be familiar with the term, the WIFM, what's in it for me, right? An end user needs to know what is in it for me if I were to make this change. How is it going to help me personally? And an example I give customers of, let's say they bought Skype for Business because they wanted to streamline their solutions and save, I don't know, $5 million. I'm just throwing a number out there. Well, if you're not giving everyone a raise in their paycheck, they don't care that the company as a whole is saving $5 million. They want to know what's in it for me. How is this going to make my job easier, my job better? So you really need to start thinking about, put yourself in the end user's shoes, you know, walk a mile in their shoes and say, well, what does this really mean to the end user? What tactics and assistance and guidance can I put out there that's going to make them want to make this shift along with the rest of the organization?
That's a great point. I think back to IT, it was one of the ones that we did a study afterwards, and it was, I guess, more insightful for us than we thought. But what we found is when people started to use, at that point, it was Link 2010. We actually did a study. People were actually getting about 90 minutes back in their day. But what we realized was what was in it for them was we gave them 90 minutes back in their day of productivity. But what it really meant is they gave us 25 to 30 minutes, and that gave them 60 minutes in their day because they weren't having to transition between buildings. They weren't having to do that. So.
Yeah, and the other thing, and this is the other thing I see a lot, is I call it the deployed and they will come approach, right? We'll just put the icon on the desktop and it'll pop up and they'll figure out what to do with it. And you know, I challenge, you know, everyone that's watching this, if you go to your start menu and you look at your list of millions of programs that you probably have installed on your computer, you know, how many of those do you actually use on any given day? And it's pretty minimal. You know, I use Office as an example, and I ask a lot of customers, well, tell me how you use Access or Project or, you know, kind of lesser used products within the Office suite. And, you know, the reality is if you don't help a user to understand the value and what the product is all about and how they would use it and the value to them, they're not going to find it. They have so many other things going on in their day. You know, they're probably working 60 hours in a 40-hour week. I mean, they're trying to cram so much in that you really want to show them, hey, this is going to help you. Here's how, here's why, and get them to, you know, go along on the ride with you.
Excellent. One of the questions that I had is you know, we talk about adoption, right? And are there resources that people will want to? I know we're going to talk at the end of the different resources, but is there resources or something that we might want to talk about? One of the questions that we did ask through Bing Pulse was the Fast Track Center. And so as we go through this, I think we might want to explain a little bit more of some of the stuff that's available to people, even beyond what they can do to change. But I'll let you.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I talk through it, what you're seeing here in the slide, I just talked about that common approach versus our ideal approach. These are two examples of customers I worked with personally. One decided to say, I don't need to follow this framework and methodology and the resources that we'll share with you in just a bit. And that's the purple line all the way down at the bottom. Another customer said,
wait. There's a purple line that's not the axis?
It looks a little bumpy. It's just like a little bumps in the road.
But it actually looks like the axis.
Pretty much.
I didn't even notice that was actually a trend line.
Right. That's why it's bold, because, otherwise it would blend right in to the bottom line.
Okay.
Yeah. They basically said, and again, adoption trajectory, super low. The other customer said, hey, I like this approach. We just gave them a framework, right? You gave them a framework to start with and say, let's go, what's in it for me, the value to end users, training, readiness, everything along those lines, 44 times the amount of usage that the other customer had.
Wow, I'm so glad that you actually explained that bottom one, because that is super impactful to understand. You know, in IT, we focus on deployment. And, you know, I will be honest. I mean, deployment, luckily going to the cloud makes deployment a little easier, but deployment is definitely much more challenging. But that right there from an adoption,
it's huge. And it's not a lot of work. It's not rocket science. When we share these resources and I talk about, you know, Sean mentioned the Fast Track Center, we have a team of people here at Microsoft that are there to help you onboard your end users. We have a success workshop. We have a Skype for Business specific adoption workshop that our Fast Track Center resources can take them through to get to that 44 times the amount of usage.
Wow.
Otherwise, you know what? There may be some organizations, you know, that are very progressive and that may go, or they're organically on their own. The reality is probably not so much.
Yeah. So you've been doing this a long time, and obviously with the move to the cloud enables the technical capabilities easier. Do we see that encourages users to use it because of the integration into other elements, or is it just another shiny object in the icon tray? Like, how do we, what is it that really makes people make that next step?
You know, that's a great question, because I do think, you know, we position it as, hey, you know, when you move to the cloud, there's less infrastructure, less things that you have to manage as a customer. But from an end user perspective, change is change.
Yeah.
Right? The end user, honestly, if I ask an end user, are you in the cloud? Are you on-prem? They have no idea. They just know that they have Skype for Business. And getting a user to change any habit, I mean, personal or business, getting anyone, it's just a human element of needing to know all of those different factors. Again, the value to them and the process they need to go through. There's actually a formal, I don't have it in this deck, but there's a formal bell curve of, you know, people resist change and then they test it and they think, okay, let me test this out, see what's in it for me. Is this going to work? And then they say, great, now I buy into it. And that's just regardless of whether it's on-prem, online, whatever the technology is, they have to go through that level of change. And when you're consolidating products and getting everything on Skype for Business, it just raises that bar of change so much higher. So one of the ways we approach our resources, again, the Fast Track Center is there to help with this adoption framework, is they take this modular approach. So it's very organized of saying, you know, let's start with IM, start with something that's familiar to end users. Everyone knows how to text in IM these days. Then launch into meetings and launch into voice, and let's expand as we go, builds user confidence. They're thinking, oh, this isn't overwhelming at all. Like, this is really easy to follow. And so we've created this framework that any organization of any size, they can jump right in if you think you want to go all in one, or you can do a phased approach. It's a repeatable framework. So if you wanted to just do IM for now, or just do the US, I know a lot of folks here from the US, just do maybe your US locations and then do other regions. There's so many different ways that you can approach our framework.
You know, one of the things that I want to talk about is we talk about Fast Track Center. And Fast Track Center is for our Office 365 customers, but one of the pieces about it that I don't think everybody realizes, if you go to fasttrack.office.com, there's a whole bunch of resources there that are publicly available, right? But what Fast Track Center does is it does two key elements. One, it does, for those that are technical, it does a technical deployment piece. And, you know, a lot of the people that are on the call are using full meetings voice the whole bit. People that will pick this up off of YouTube will be a variance, right? We'll see a lot of IM. We might see some online on-prem stuff. One of the pieces, though, that I found is key is there's some great offers within Fast Track Center to work with partners. So if you have an existing partner engaged, you know, one of the big challenges that's up there is if you look at partners in general, right? A partner has the capability to typically has been a bits and bytes person. They do deployment, they come in, they do the framing, they do the planning, but they're now starting to build this discipline around adoption.
Absolutely.
And what they're seeing is they've also got a great resource. They've got a great resource in the Fast Track Center for deployment as well as adoption.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I agree that, the Fast Track Center, as Sean mentioned, there's the Fast Track site, which you
Yep.
mentioned has kind of these broad reach resources that are downloadable, anyone can use. And then there's the Fast Track Center, which is the team of resources that can help with your deployment and adoption needs and requirements. But then, yeah, I mean, then there are customers who say, I just want to work with someone for this one piece, then go deep. I have
Yep.
this really, I need this deep consulting work, or
Yeah.
my environment, I hear that all the time, my environment's so complicated, right?
Yeah.
Well, great. You know what? We have specialized partners that can help with those particular areas,
Mhm.
whether it's the deep technical or adoption or things like that. So, I mean, yeah, and if you come in through the Fast Track Center, they are there to guide you
Okay.
for all of your
So
adoption.
for we've got a pretty good bang pulse that's
Yeah.
coming in, and we're getting a lot of feedback on the Fast Track Center. For those that are there, what we will do is we will make sure that I post information on the Yammer community,
Perfect.
the IT Pro Yammer community, and we will link that back out to Twitter as well for who the Fast Track Center is, what some of the
awesome. Yeah.
offers are and stuff there. Because the Fast Track Center, a lot of people don't know about it, but the Fast Track Center is such an amazing resource
Yes.
that, by the way, is free.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And if somebody's looking at doing Cloud PBX, there's actually a paid offer to have a partner come in and help you with deploying Cloud PBX in your environment. Those pieces, though, are the technical deployment, the adoption pieces that literally what you have been doing for the last 10 years, you have built now into a scalable, repeatable process for the Fast Track Center.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about how that has actually worked.
It's been really interesting, and customers have been super excited to just say, oh my gosh, this is, I think the one customer, the last customer I worked with said, I don't know why I didn't think about doing it this way, a year ago. They said, we've been sitting on Skype for Business, we deployed it, and no one is using it. And when I went in and presented this framework, they said, that's it. Again, it's not rocket science, but it is a methodology, and it is a process. And it includes things like awareness and training. It's identifying goals and metrics. That's all the time I hear, we want to increase adoption. What does that mean to your organization? And it's really helping the customer define those types of metrics and identifying user scenarios and personas.
Yeah.
Who are the different user groups? Because different user groups in an organization will have different use cases.
So where can people find that information for that framework and how to identify these personas? I know you've done an update on our YouTube video that's a longer conversation of this. But where can they get access to that? Yeah,
so actually the first link that you guys are seeing on the slide here, the Maximizing SfB Adoption, that's a recorded video of the workshop, so I'll take you through end to end if you want to look at that. If you're then ready to download the materials, which include, they're all customizable resources, templates, there's job aids, there's email templates, there's strategy docs of how do I create an awareness strategy, how do I create a voice strategy, how do I create a support strategy.
Really?
All in those downloaded materials. And then if you want a
and
live...
how much does that cost?
That's all free.
Okay.
All free. All free. And if you want a live version of the workshop, someone to take you through it, so maybe you want to be able to ask questions to a live person, that's the Fast Track Center.
Oh,
so they
that's
can actually,
excellent.
and again, free.
Excellent. It's sorry, the free things a running joke from because we're actually consulting services at Microsoft is actually doing 2-day stand-ups as well that are also free for large customers.
Got it.
To go through this, and so that's kind of their big thing. But a lot of these services that are out there really are there to help and assist your partners through it, as well as to really help accelerate you and do that. So why don't we kind of walk through, what do you think the 3 key takeaways that we want to kind of hit today, so that people leave here understanding what they should be doing next? Yeah,
I mean, the first thing I would encourage everyone to do is really go explore everything that Skype for Business can do. If you just have it deployed for IM, do you have other, and I won't mention any names, if you have other web conferencing products or dial-in conferencing or audio or PB, what does your PBX system look like? Go explore all of that and really see what Skype for Business can do, because there's a good chance you can consolidate one or more of those technologies down, saving you time, saving you money, all those advantages we talked about earlier. Also remember, change, we talked about this. Change is hard for anyone. Think about, anyone tried to, go on a diet, change the way they eat. It's not so easy to do. You revert back to your old habits. So again, you really want to spend the time to get users to want to change, and that's where our methodology and our framework can come in. And the last one there, technical deployment is only going to get you so far. Putting an icon on the desktop is not going to get people to know what it is.
It's 50% of the way there.
It's halfway there. You're absolutely right. And the other thing, this is really important. I don't have it on the slide, but your end user is not an IT pro. That's the other thing I hear customers say all the time. Well, we tested this. We piloted it within IT. I don't understand why end users aren't using it. There's a very different mindset from a technical, perspective versus an end user that will be using it on a day-to-day basis.
It's interesting you say that. So Microsoft, we're a very large technology company. We have a lot of non-technical people. We have some extremely technical people. And some of the very simple concepts that we in IT, product group, and marketing think are very intuitive aren't for the average user. So in addition to some of these, we'll also post up the location for all of our snippet videos. There's some on YouTube, but we've also got some on support.office.com that really walk through some of the different scenarios. I think that'll be valuable to kind of piggyback on this recording at the same time. So so is there anything else you want to cover before we sign off for the evening?
I think we hit on all the main points. Again, I would just say, make sure you really understand what value Skype for Business can bring to your organization. And then once you make that decision to go all in, make sure you're not just doing that technical deployment track, that there's also a user readiness and adoption track that goes along with it. And that's really where you're going to start seeing, the value come into fruition.
Excellent. Well, I just put up one more for just a moment more so you can get access to these. We will make these available not only through the Yammer community, but also through Twitter. We'll follow it up after this recording when it comes out with those links.
Excellent.
But I just want to thank Debbie for coming in, having the time to talk with us. And thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
Have a
guys.
great day.
Thanks.